Welcome today to Systematic Theology, and we're going to continue with the doctrine of man or of humanity. And this lesson today, we're talking about the origin of humanity. The origin of humanity. And to summarize this chapter is the purpose for the placement of humans on earth goes beyond the simple explanation for the physical existence of humans, and is set forth in the biblical revelation. In the light of Romans 5 and 1 Corinthians 15, we cannot accept one of the scholars, Bruner's position on creation, and we will talk about this, but must view Adam and Eve as literal persons, because Bruner says they are not literal. It's mythology. It's a parable. Yeah, you hear this a lot. Many people nowadays say that's not a real story. It's just like one of the parables of Jesus. It's not literal. So we, in light of Scripture, we have to reject that and accept the idea that it is literal, that Adam and Eve are literal persons. And of the 5 positions regarding human beginnings, progressive creationism seems to present the fewest problems. We will discuss the 5 theories about the origin of humanity. Similarly, the evidence seems to support a position that culture can be dated to about 30,000 years ago. And again, we're going to talk, when was Adam created? When did creation start? So we have many theories about millions of years ago or thousands of years. Through the beginning of language. There are 5 views of Neolithic elements in Genesis 4, like prehistoric elements, and no definitive answer may be given. Finally, 9 conclusions are reached about the theological meaning of creation. So that's a summary of what we're going to discuss. So next, please, the outline. We will explain the meaning of the word origin, the status of Adam and Eve, the different views of human beginning. And then we have the naturalistic evolution, fiat creationism, deistic evolution, theistic evolution, and progressive creationism. These are all theories regarding how man came to earth, the origin of humanity. And then the age of the human race, and we have 4 conservative views. Then we have the problem of the Neolithic elements in Genesis 4, and then the theological meaning of the human creation. And again, I give credit to Millard Erickson, a systematic theology book, and I'm using this chapter from his book. The meaning of origin. To speak of the beginning of the human is merely a scientific type of reference to the fact that humans came into being, and perhaps to the way in which this came about. Origin, however, carries the connotation of the purpose of this coming into being. It's not only when they began or when they were created, human beings, but it's like why. Why are they here on earth? What's the purpose of creation? So this is the meaning of the word origin. The biblical picture of humanity's origin is that an all-wise, all-powerful, and good God created the human race to love and serve Him and to enjoy a relationship with Him. So as we said when we talked about the doctrine of God, that God is independent. He doesn't need us in order to exist. So then we ask the question, why did He then create us? And it's for this reason, to enjoy a relationship with Him. It's out of love. He didn't do it because of necessity or because of anything or anybody compelling Him to do that. So it's out of love and out of this idea of enjoying a relationship, to love Him and serve Him. Okay, when we come to the idea of the status of Adam and Eve, there are numerous differing interpretations of the status of the first pair of humans have been formulated, and promulgated, there has been sharp divergence over whether Adam and Eve are to be regarded as actual historical persons. Are they real? Or is it just a story, a parable? A myth. Some people call it a myth. Okay? Or as merely symbolic. The traditional Christian view sees humans, Adam and Eve, as literal, historic persons. The traditional view has been that they were actual persons and that the events in the biblical account took place within space and time. It happened literally. A number of theologians have challenged this view, however. Okay, so we're talking about theologians or scholars, and so we need to study these things. One of these, those who most emphatically rejected this view was Emil Brunner, and that's the guy. In many ways, his approach likens the creation account to a parable. So this is the idea. It says, he says, don't take it literally. Think of it as one of the parables of Jesus. It's just a story, a symbolic story, telling us some spiritual facts. So what's the point behind the parable? You don't take it literally. So now we study the different views of human beginning. The naturalistic evolution, that's the first one. So when we ask the question about human beings, how they came into being, we will find that there are different views, different theories, and one of them is the naturalistic evolution. There is a variety of views today regarding the origin of human species. They differ in the places they assign to the biblical and scientific data. One of these views is naturalistic evolution. This is an attempt to account for the human species as well as all other forms of life without appealing to a supernatural explanation. So like when we talk about scientists, they don't want to say God. They don't want to mention God, you know. They want to scientific data. They want to use something that they can test. So they don't want anything to do with supernatural being here, or supernatural explanation. So eminent processes within nature have produced humans and all else that exists. There is no involvement by any divine person, either at the beginning or during the process. So this is the idea of like the Big Bang, you know, evolution. That no God is involved in this. It just happened, you know. It's some atoms came together, and that's how life started. Or just the little cell started the whole process. And so all that is needed, according to naturalistic evolution, is atoms in motion. So you just have some atoms moving, and then when they collide together, then the Big Bang happens, and then you see the whole universe happening. That's the idea. That's the idea.
Here we are.
And here we are. And then you find human beings evolving, of course, from the first cell. It starts with the first cell, and then it develops, and there is an evolution. So the first cell becomes 2, 3, more complicated, until we reach human beings. So there is no God involved in the process, in the beginning or in the process, according to this theory. And then a combination of atoms, motion, time, and chance has fashioned what we currently have. So it's just, you know, you have the atoms, and then they are moving, and then they collide, and then you need just to give them some time, and then you will find what happened here is it's like everything you see in nature is actually will go back to these little atoms. So we don't need God. So this is what we call evolution or naturalistic. It's nature. No God is involved. Okay? And of course, this is being taught in colleges all over the world, especially the Western world, in the States, in England, in Europe. They call it science. And of course, that's not science, that's a theory. And a theory doesn't have proof or evidence. But it's just a theory. But they teach it as this is science. And then when we talk about God, this is ridiculous. This is, you're very simple, you know, you're crazy. But this is, they say, this is the real stuff. Okay, next. The second one, the second theory is what we call fiat creationism. At the opposite end of the spectrum is what is sometimes termed as creationism. Like God created, okay? This is the idea that God, by a direct act, brought into being virtually instantaneously everything that is. So this is, God said, let it be all in one instant, and it all happened. That's fiat creationism. In one instant, God said it and it happened in one instant. Note two features of this view. One is the brevity of time involved. So this view is actually not saying that there was some time that elapsed between one stage of creation to another. No, they say it all happened like this in one moment. So that there is brief time according to this theory. So the brevity of time involved, and hence the relative recency of what occurred at creation. So if we believe in that theory, then creation is very recent. It happened not thousands or millions of years ago, then it is very recent. Because it just all happened like this, in one moment. And while there were various stages of creation, one occurring after another, so there were stages, according to this theory, no substantial amount of time elapsed from the beginning to the end of the process. And I think they believe in 1 week, you know, like God created the whole world in 1 week, 7 days, and the day is 24 hours, you know, so it's a really short time, you know. So this is very literal, taking the verses in Genesis very literally. And perhaps a calendar week or so was involved. Another tenet of this view is the idea of direct divine working. So it's all God directly working. No chance for creation to work on itself, even by God's order or oversight. No. This is the idea of direct divine working. God produced the world and everything in it, not by the use of any indirect means or biological mechanisms. So no giving birth, or the trees giving seeds and the seeds having trees. No. All is direct divine intervention. Bam. You know? So this is very literal, very strict view, though it is based on the Bible, but it's very literal. And but by direct action and contact. So God is doing everything. Okay? The third one is deistic evolution. Deistic coming from Deus, God. From Latin. Although the term is rarely heard, deistic evolution is perhaps the best way to describe one variety of what is generally called theistic evolution. And we will come to the theistic evolution. I don't want to confuse you now, but this is the view that God began the process of evolution, producing the first matter, and implanting within the creation the laws its development has followed. So this is different. They say God created the first matter, the first things, and then allowed the matter, and he put some laws, like giving birth according to your seed, according to the seed. So an apple tree would give birth to an apple tree, you know, and animals will give birth to animals of the same species, the same kind. So here is not everything direct, like the previous theory, okay? Here is God creating the first matter, and then putting some laws and some rules, and then they are working. The evolution is taking place. So thus he programmed the process and then withdrew from the active involvement with the world. So it is like a programmer. You know, he put the program on the computer and then it's working by itself and he doesn't have to control it anymore. You see? So that's theistic. It's God started the process and then he is no longer involved. Okay? So he actually became like creator emeritus, you know? he started the process and then now he's, okay, I have nothing to do with you guys. That's it. Okay? So God is the creator, the ultimate cause, according to this view, but evolution is the means. So they tried actually to kind of marry science with religion, you know, to make them happy together. So God created the first elements, the first things, and then evolution took over, and God is saying, okay, bye-bye, thank you. You do your thing. Okay?
Yeah.
So this is the second view. The third view is theistic evolution. And it's derived from the word theos in Greek, meaning God. Theos meaning God, but it's different from deistic. Deistic meaning he created and then he said, okay, no more, I stop the work now. Theistic is saying that it goes beyond deistic evolution in terms of God's involvement in creation. So God is actually still involved. So he started the first materials, but still involved in creation. So God began the process by bringing the first organism to life. He then continued by working internally toward his goal for the creation. At some point, however, he also acted supernaturally, intervening to modify the process. So you see here God, he created the first material, and then he continued in the process, and then if the process is going somewhere not according to his purpose, he would intervene supernaturally to make it follow his purpose. To modify the process but employing already existing materials. Okay? So he started the whole thing, and he continues, and he's involved in creation. And God created the first human being, but in doing so, he used an existing creature. So he's actually used, well, according to evolution, he used like chimpanzee, you know, the monkeys. So maybe it doesn't say that per se, but actually he's saying, well, God created the first material, the first life organism, and then he used something that he already created to make the human beings. God created a human soul and infused it into one of higher primates, transforming this creature into the first human. So they think now maybe he had a chimpanzee, and then he put his spirit in that chimpanzee, so the monkey became a human being, you know? Again, they are trying to make a kind of a compromise between the Genesis story and science, evolution. They are trying. And So the first human came into being. That's why God specially created Adam's spiritual nature. His physical nature was the product of the process of evolution. You see, so the body is product of evolution, but the spirit is from God. You see? Science and religion. Science and religion. This is another view. It's a theory. Okay. And then progressive creationism, the one that we like the most, it says that the creative work of God is a combination of a series of de novo creative acts. They were, de novo is new. So they were new acts out of nothing. Okay? And an imminent or processive operation. It's a process. Okay? It's progressive. So God at several points rather widely separated in time. Notice here that actually we allow here for a long time. So it's not like fiat creationism is like God said it and it was there for in 1 week he finished everything. No. Here it says God created the world, but over time, a long time. Okay? Created de novo, created afresh, everything. On those occasions, he didn't make use of previously existing life, simply modifying it. No, we're not saying he used something that existed before. We're saying he created out of nothing, afresh, de novo. While he might have brought into being something quite similar to an already existing creation, there were a number of changes and the product of his work was a completely new creature. So again, like if we go to the Bible, that he used mud or dust to create Adam. So he created dust in the beginning, and then he used the dust to make Adam out of dust. Between these special acts of creation, development took place through evolution. Okay, so here we give place to evolution as well. Why? Because again we're saying there is time between one creation and another, one species and another, like plants and animals, and so there is a place for evolution. Okay? For example, it is possible that God created the first member of the horse family and the various species of the family then developed through evolution. And if you study science and even evolution, you will find that when the earth was covered by water, a lot of water, the foot of the horse had a special form, so he can actually walk through muddy water, you know, and so that's how his foot looked, the horse. And then when the water receded and it became drier and drier, his foot evolved and it became different, the shape that we have now. Why? Because he doesn't need that big one like before, you know, it's like a duck. Yeah, so that's scientific. And so we believe in what we call, we will talk about this later, what we call development of the species, of one species, not one species to another, but in kind. The horse family changed, the dog family changed, the cat family changed. So we believe in evolution in the family, in the animal family, in one family. But not an amoeba becoming a monkey, no. Okay? So this is what we call intra-kind evolution. Intra-kind meaning evolution in the same kind, in the same horse family, in the same duck family or cat family. This is intra-kind evolution. We have no problem as Christians with that. even human beings. If you look at the primitive man, they didn't have air condition or heaters or anything. They had a lot of hair, hairy bodies to protect them from heat or cold. They were stronger than us because everything by hunting and running and walking. No cars, no all the luxury stuff that we have nowadays. The food, no processed food. They were very healthy. So that's again, we are, I'm not saying we are developing, actually we're getting worse. But that's the evolution that we have as human beings. And yes, so with our muscles and our bodies are getting weaker, and it's like spending more time intellectually thinking about stuff. So it's different. So we are evolving in kind. That's intra-kind development. What we call micro-evolution. Not inter-kind development. We're not saying there is evolution from one kind to another. We're saying, again, evolution in every kind. That's what we call the interkind development, is what is called macroevolution. We don't believe in that. For with respect to the biblical statement that God made every creature after its kind, we have observed that the Hebrew word mian is rather vague, which is the Hebrew word in the Bible. It's kind. According to progressive creationism, when the time came to bring the first human into existence, God made him directly and completely, not out of some lower creature. He didn't use a monkey or anything. Okay? So he made him out of mud, but not of a lower creature, directly. So that's I think evangelicals accept this view as biblical. That it is according to the Genesis account, and at the same time it accepts evolution and science. It doesn't contradict science. But we accept only one part of evolution, not everything about evolution. Okay? It sounds good, right?
That's the best one.
Okay. So, now we talk about the age of the human race. One additional question that needs to be asked concerns the age of the race. When did humans, specifically as depicted in the Bible, first appear on the earth? Evangelicals or conservatives have answered the question in several different ways. In part, our answer will depend on our definition of humanity. So now, we're asking about how many years. When did they first appear on earth, human beings? Okay? The age of the human race. Next, please. We have 4 conservative views about how many years, how far back, okay? So the first one is, some evangelicals or conservatives, they say the issue is of no consequence. We don't want to know. We don't care. Why? God created the world, and it says in the Bible, we don't need to know how many years. It doesn't matter. Okay? And these people want to, live in peace. They don't want to think or tire themselves thinking about these issues. So it's very easy to say, we don't know. We don't know, we don't want to know. It doesn't matter. Either we cannot determine the age of the human race, or it would make no particular difference if we could. And then this guy, B.B. Warfield, once wrote, the question of the antiquity of man has of itself no theological significance. He's saying, well, if I tell you 5,000 years, and if I tell you 5 million years, what is the difference to you? Will it affect your theological perspective about God or nature or anything? It doesn't matter, actually. Okay? So this guy is saying we don't care. It's such a matter of entire indifference how long man has existed on earth. So whether Warfield would approve of the use to which this statement has sometimes been put, it does appear that he didn't give the issue a high priority. It's not that important. So that's the first view, conservative view. We don't care. Second one, next. The second one is actually saying, okay, we can actually measure the years by the tool making. Tools. Because human beings made tools to work, like in the field, or to make fire, or, to make a knife out of stone. So the first tools. So let's go back to the first tools that we have, and according to that, we will decide when were the first human beings appeared on earth. So the ability to conceive, fashion, and utilize tools is what distinguishes humans from subhuman creatures. You will never find an animal making tools. So humans are actually distinguished from other creatures by tools. And that's why we can know, like, okay, if we have tools from like 5 million years ago, then we say, okay, human beings existed 5 million years ago. So then the human race's origin is to be dated quite early, perhaps 500,000 to 2 million years ago, according to the tools that we have. We're not exact, we cannot say exactly, but it is 500,000 to 2 million years. It's a range, somewhere there, according to the first tools that we found. And then the practice, another view is actually the practice of the burial of the dead. And they say animals don't bury their dead, but human beings do. So if we find a grave or somebody buried in a proper way, then we say, okay, how old is that body or corpse? So we go back according to the first burial that we have recorded, of course. So again, that sets humans apart from other creatures. And if this is the criterion, then the first human is to be identified with the Neanderthal man and dated about 50,000 years ago. The first buried human being goes back to 50,000 years. Okay? The fourth view is actually saying the human is distinguished by the presence and use of complex symbolism, or more specifically of language. So if we go back and find the first use of language, then we know how old is humanity. Next, please. So this again, they are different conservative views trying to use science to know the age of humanity or Earth. Let us then, so if you see from these different views, actually we're not conclusive. We cannot say for sure the Earth was created 2 million years ago, 500,000 years ago. We are not very sure. Until today, even science is not sure. Every day there are new discoveries, and they say, oh, we discovered something else, a fossil that is dated like 2 million years ago. Then they say, oh, no, it's earlier than that, it's later than that. So until today, we're not very sure. And we, as Christians, we encourage people to study, and we encourage scientific discoveries. But again, would it really make a difference for us if it was 5 million or 5,000? Theologically speaking, okay? Okay, let's get some of the theological meanings of human creation. What is the meaning of that? What can we get out of the creation story from Genesis? The first thing is that humans are created means that they have no independent existence. If we say that human beings were created, this means that they are not God. We are not gods. So we are actually depending on God for our existence. So we need to be aware of that. The second thing is humans are part of the creation. And when we say that we are part of creation, then we should respect the other members of creation. Plants, trees, animals, because we are part of that creation. They were created by God, we were created by God. Okay? So we actually, Christians should be the first ones to protect the environment. Don't pollute the environment. Water, air, you know. I read on the internet a lot of stories about using plastic bags, polluting the ocean and the sea, and actually suffocating the fish because of our abuse of plastic. That's not use, that's abuse. And people are throwing these in the sea or the ocean and killing the fish there. So that's not, if we believe the Bible and we believe that God created us and other parts of creation, then we should help protect the other creatures. 3, that human, however, has a unique place in creation. Though we are created, all of us are created by God, but human beings have a special place in creation. Human beings are given a higher position in creation. So, let's be very clear about this. We love animals and we want to protect animals from animal violence or abuse or whatever. But if I read a story about one lady driving one day on the highway, and then she sees an accident, and then she says, what happened? And they tell her that an accident took place, and then a man or a woman were killed in the accident. And then she says, oh, thank God, no animal was killed.
Yeah. There are people like that.
That's not right.
I know people like that.
Yes, that's not right.
No.
Because now you're making animals higher than human beings in value. We should love animals, we should care about them, but human beings are on a higher level than animals. So again, if you have a choice, an animal would be killed or a human being would be killed, we should choose human beings who would live and survive, okay? Not the opposite. So, and also number 4, there is a kinship among humans. If we are created by God as Adam and Eve, the first couple, then we are all brothers and sisters. It doesn't matter your color, your nationality, your language, your education, your economic status, how much money you have, how much education, it doesn't matter. We are all one big family. And then if you think about it this way, then there shouldn't be there any prejudice or feeling that I'm superior to you or you are superior to me, because actually we are all one family. And you know that. You know that's a big problem all over the world. And even sometimes if we are nice and we don't show it, but actually in the hearts of people there is always this kind of superiority. We are superior to those people because of our language, because of our ethnicity, because of the color of our complexion. because of this and that, because of money, because of status, because of this, because the car I'm driving. You know? No, you're not. You are not superior to anybody, and you are not inferior either. Okay? So if people look down at you, no. Nobody, don't allow or don't let anybody look down on you because of whatever they have. So we are all one family. We are all human beings. And number 5, humanity is not the highest object in the universe. We are not the top. Why? Because there is a God. So we don't decide what we do with earth or the animals or the birds. We have to go back to the owner of everything. And he tells us what to do. We are actually tenants of this earth. So we go back to the owner. I rent an apartment. I cannot just demolish a wall or remodel it or do crazy stuff. It's not mine. I have to go back to the owner of the place. So we actually are renting this earth from God, and we should go back to Him. And He should set the rules and the moral and ethical code for tenants on this earth. We're not the highest thing, the highest being, but there is a God above. Number 6, there are definite limitations upon humanity. We are limited. We are created, we are limited by time, we don't live forever, we are limited by space. I am here, I cannot be here and in Egypt at the same time. When we get older, we have more limitations of health-wise, you know, what we can do, what we cannot do. God created us this way. He created human beings wonderfully. But then we have to understand our limitations and accept them and embrace them. We are limited. We can do certain things and we cannot do certain things. We need to accept that and live with that. Limitation is not inherently bad. Because people would think, if I am limited, then that's bad. I don't want to be limited. I want to be free to do anything. No, it's not inherently bad. If you know the limitations that you have and work within that frame, you know, there is no problem. A proper adjustment in life can be achieved only on the basis of acceptance of one's own finiteness. So, just to accept our limitation. And we need to adjust accordingly. Whether you do it or not, I think you have to do it. When I was younger, I used to walk more, run, and do crazy stuff because I had more energy. Now I cannot do half of that stuff because I'm getting older. And I need to adjust my lifestyle to that, to age. Yeah. Number 9, humanity is nonetheless something wonderful. Yes, humanity is very wonderful. It's beautiful. And if you just see the hand of the Creator in every person you meet, and the beauty in that person, and how distinct and distinguished we are, and the talents we have, the differences, they are very beautiful. And we don't have to be threatened by that. We don't have to be copies, you know, photocopies. God didn't do that. And He doesn't want that. So sometimes people say, why can't you be normal like me? You know? No, I am normal and I am different. And we should celebrate our differences. Okay, next please. Then this chapter we're going to talk about, so we talked about the origin of man, and now we're going to talk about the image of God in man, in human beings. The summary of this chapter is the image of God in humanity is critical to our understanding of what makes us human. Why are we different from animals or birds or plants? because we have something called the image of God in us. The substantive, relational and functional views of the image of God are not completely satisfying explanations. Then we're going to discuss these different ones, different views. We must reach our conclusions about the image of God by making inferences from the biblical data. What does the Bible mean by saying that we have the image of God in us? That God created us after His image, after His likeness. The implications of that image of God should inspire us and set the parameters for our view of all humanity. When we understand that correctly, then that would help us how to deal with one another and how to deal with myself. Okay, next please. The outline of the chapter, we're going to discuss the different views of the image of God. So the substantive view, the relational view, the functional view, and then evaluation of the different views, and then we come to the conclusion regarding the nature of the image, and then the implication of that doctrine. Okay? Next, please. Okay, the views of the image. Some consider the image to consist of certain characteristics within the very nature of the human, either physical or psychological or spiritual. So they say, we're going to discuss later more, but they say physically or spiritually or intellectually or psychologically, we are like God in some respect. We are not perfect, but we look like Him in that respect. This view we will call the substantive view of the image, substance, coming from the word substance. In substance, we are like God. We have the image of God in us. Whether this substance is physical or psychological or spiritual. Others regard the image not as something inherently or intrinsically present in humans, but as the experiencing of a relationship between humans and God. They say the image is actually that we can enjoy a relationship with God. So it's relational. It's not something inherent in us. It's when we have relationship with God. And actually between two or more humans. So it's a relationship. It's a relationship with God or between two or more humans. This is what we call the relational view. Finally, some consider the image to be not something as a human is or experiences, but something a human does. So it's not, some people say what you are makes you different as a human being, and then some would say no, what you enjoy, experience as a relationship, and then the third one would say no, it's what you do distinguishes you from different species or creatures. So this is what the human being does, makes him or her look like God. And this is what we call the functional view. Okay, next please. So let's talk about the first one, talking about substance. That there is something in us, inherent in us, that makes us different or distinguished. More common substantive views of the image of God isolate it in terms of some psychological or spiritual quality in human nature, especially reason. So they say the image of God is reason, that we have the ability to reason, mind, intellect. And that makes us different from animals or birds or plants. So this is kind of a substance in us, something that we have in our nature. And the human species is classified biologically as Homo sapiens, the thinking being. So that's thinking beings. Okay? I think sapiens coming from sapiens, knowledge, to know. So it's that what distinguishes the human beings from other beings, like creatures. So sometimes it refers to moral attributes, and so now it's reason, the mind, the intellect, and sometimes it's the morals, that we are distinguished from animals by the morals we have. We are human beings because we have morals. We have the sense of right and wrong. Okay? The relational view is talking about relationship. Despite the differences between the two, Barth and Brunner came to hold certain elements in common. So these are scholars, great theological scholars, that they agreed on this relational view. And they say, the image of God and human nature are best understood through a study of the person of Jesus, not of human nature per se. So they say, if you want to study human nature, don't study humans. Because we are sinful. We have sinful nature. But Jesus in the flesh, when He became a human being, is actually the perfect human being. So if you study Him, you will know how a perfect human being before the fall looked like. The second thing is, we obtain our understanding of the image of God from the divine revelation in the Bible. The third thing is that the image of God is not to be understood in terms of any structural qualities within humans. It's not something a human is or possesses. It's not in you. Rather, the image is a matter of one's relationship to God. What makes you look like God or have the image of God is when you have a relationship with God. It is something a human experiences. So actually, when you experience this relationship with God, then you really have the image of God. If you don't have this experience, you don't have the image. Thus, it is dynamic rather than static. It's something happening, experience. It's not always there. You experience it when you have this relationship with God. Next, please. Okay. The relational view, then they said also the relationship of a human to God, which constitutes the image of God, is paralleled by the relationship between human. So again, it's not only the relationship between me and God, but also my relationship with you. When I have a relationship with other humans, then I am enjoying the image of God. Barth makes much more of the male-female relationship. So he is actually saying the male and female relationship in marriage, and it is in the Bible actually compared, the relationship between God and humans is compared to the relationship between the husband and the wife. So he's saying you experience this image when you have this relationship. Brunner tends to emphasize the larger circle of human relationship that is society. So Barth is focusing on the marital relationship, and then Brunner says, no, that's something, the image is something you experience in the whole society. Number 5, the image of God is universal. It is found in all humans at all times and places. Therefore, it is present even in sinful human nature. Sinful human people, human beings. Even in turning away from God, one cannot negate the fact of being related to God. In a way. So they say, because the objection was, what if I don't have I don't experience a relationship with God? I don't have the image? They said no. Even when you don't have a relationship with God, you have a negative relationship with God. Yes. So even if you are sinful, you are enjoying the image, though in a negative way. So in a way that in which no other creature is or can be. There is always a relationship, either positive or negative. Number 6, under the relational view, no conclusion can or need be drawn as to what there might be in a person's nature that would constitute the ability to have such a relationship. They say, we're not going to discuss what humans have in them to have this relationship with God and other people. We don't care about that. The substance, we don't care about that. They never ask what, if anything, is required structurally inside of human beings for the image of God to be present in a human. Even the formal image of which Brunner speaks is relational, not structural. So you see here, it's all relationship. Okay. The functional view. The third view is of the image is saying, and it has quite a long history and has recently increased in popularity. This is the idea that the image is not something present in the makeup of the human. It's not in you. It's not something inside or part of your personality. Nor the experiencing of a relationship with God. It's not an experience. Or with fellow humans, or even with a relationship among people. But rather consists in something one does. It is a human function, the most frequently mentioned being the exercise of dominion over the creation. So they say, God created human beings, and He said, I'm going to give you authority over creation. They say, this dominion, this authority is the image. So they connected the two when they studied the Bible, and it's not a good translation or good interpretation, but they say, when God said, I will create, let us create man in our image, and then He said, and give them dominion over the earth. So they say dominion is equivalent of the image. So if we experience or we exercise our authority and dominion, then we are enjoying the image of God. Conclusions regarding the nature of the image. The image of God is universal within the human race. So it's in everybody. Nobody is excluded. Number 2, the image of God has not been lost as a result of sin, or specifically the fall. It could have been marred or not perfect anymore, but it's still there, even after the fall. Okay? There is no indication that the image is present in one person to a greater degree than in another. The Bible doesn't mention something of like, if you are a believer, you have a better image, and if you're a sinner, then you have a worse image. No. No degree. We are all created in the image of God, equally. Number 4, the image is not correlated with any variable, like relationship, or reason, or dominion. So it actually doesn't depend on something that I do or experience or outside. It's in you. It's a substance in every human being. In light of the foregoing considerations, the image should be thought of as primarily substantive or structural. It is inside every person. The image, number 6, the image refers to the elements in the human makeup that enable the fulfillment of human destiny. So God put us on earth for a purpose. And if we follow that purpose and fulfill that, then we're actually the elements that make us, the makeup, the psychological makeup inside, when we fulfill that destiny, we're actually acting according to the image of God. That human makeup that enabled the fulfillment of human destiny. So it's actually, if you go away from fulfilling your destiny according to God's purpose, then you're not acting according to that image. But still, you have the image. The implications of the doctrine. If we were created in the image of God, then we belong to God. Do you remember the story that the Jews came to Jesus and said, should we give taxes to Caesar or only to God? You know, money. So he didn't have money. He was poor. So he said, do you have a dinar? Yes. Okay, give me one. So he takes the dinar. And then on one side they have the number is like €1 or 2 or whatever. And then on the other side they have the picture of Caesar, the emperor. So he said, whose picture is this? And they said, Caesar's. And so he says, if Caesar has his picture on this coin, then it belongs to him, because it has his image. The same applies to us. If we have the image, the picture of God on us, we belong to God. So if God put his image, his picture on you, then you belong to God. So actually all human beings belong to God. We don't belong to ourselves. We don't own ourselves. We actually, our life is kind of a loan. God loaned us this life, this body, this soul, this spirit, and we should be good stewards. And by the end of our life, the owner will come and say, what did you do with your life? What did you do with your health? What did you do with your intellect? Did you use it wisely? And then we will give account of our life, because we belong to God. Imagine if we follow these basic principles of Christianity. If the world follows these rules, oh my goodness, we will be different. Because sometimes we think we are gods, we belong to ourselves, I own myself, I am the master of my destiny, I say what I can do and what I don't want, and I decide. No, you don't decide. God created me for a purpose. And I need to ask him, what is this purpose? What do you want me to do on earth? Second, we should pattern ourselves after Jesus, the complete revelation of the image of God. We are, according to the Bible, fallen human beings, sinful. And Jesus came as the perfect human being, fully man, fully God. So he gave us the example of how to live. So I say, I don't know how I should live, then I look at Jesus. Okay? I want to have his feelings. And I want my will to be according to his will. And my thoughts will be according to his thoughts. So he's the perfect human being. Bless you. 3. We experience full humanity only when we are properly related to God. So, it is something in us, the image of God is something in us, but also it's relational. When I connect with God, who gave me this image, then I'm actually connected to the power. It's like this fan is connected to the power, electricity. If it's not connected, it's not going to function properly. It's not going to do its destiny, the purpose for which it was created, because it's not connected. If I'm connected, then I will follow and fulfill the destiny that God created me for. 4. Learning and work are good. The exercise of dominion is a consequence of the image of God. So when God created the whole world and then gave Adam and Eve and their descendants dominion over the world, then I need to be a wise steward. Okay? So I need to study, to learn about the animal kingdom, about plants, about stars, about everything. Why? Because how can I exercise my dominion if I don't know these things? The better I know, the better I will be taking my decisions. Not to hurt the universe or the creation, but actually to make it better. So I need to study, I need to learn and to know more. And also work. When the Lord created the earth or the Garden of Eden, He asked Adam to tend it, to work in it, to take care of it. So work is good, it's not a curse. And we need to know and also work to do good in this creation, because God created it and He created us in His image to take care. We actually represent God on this earth. He gave us authority over the earth, and we need to be wise and good stewards, not to destroy it. I compare this to like a child. It's like if I buy a bicycle for my child and I say, this is yours. And then he looks at me and he says, so it belongs to me now? Yes, I bought it for you. Okay, and then he starts destroying it. And then I yell at him, well, what are you doing? And then he looks at me and says, but Dad, you said I own it now. Well, I gave it to you and you own it to use it in a good way, not to destroy it. And I think many times that as human beings we're destroying the earth and creation because God gave us authority or dominion over it, and it's like, oh, you gave it to us. Well, it doesn't belong to you. It actually belongs to God. Number 5 is that human is valuable. So if humans have the image of God in their psychic makeup, in their psychological makeup, in their moral code, in their relationship and everything that is in them, then they are valuable. And that's why the Bible says, don't curse any human being because they have the image of God in them. Any human being. No cursing and no killing of any human being because they have the image of God. So actually when we curse, we're denigrating, we're putting down somebody that's created in the image of God. You think he or she is inferior. And He says, don't do that, because they are created in the image of God. And don't kill them, because they are made in the image of God. Both. So actually we need to value human life and respect humans no matter what. The color, the ethnicity and so on. So we need to know that. And then finally, the image is universal in humankind. Everywhere. Again, different ethnicities, different countries, nationalities, all are human beings. And they are valuable in God's sight. And so we're not the only ones that are humans, and then others are not or less human. And you see that when we talk about Hitler, thinking that the Aryan ethnicity is higher than others, or like in the United States, whites thought that blacks are not human, that they were less human No? We are all human beings. It's universal. Next, please. Then we're going to talk about another chapter here, the constitutional nature of the human. The chapter summary is there are three traditional views of the human constitution. What makes human beings? Human beings are made of what? So one is actually trichotomism. It's like three parts. Human beings are made of three parts. And then we have the dichotomism. It's like made of two parts. And then monism. That's only one part. Okay. Scholars tend to use big words for very simple things. So they don't say 3, 2, 1. They say monism, dichotomism, trichotomism. Big words, you know. So you feel like, oh, they know more. Particular attention is paid to the monism of John Robinson. Careful discussion of the biblical and philosophical considerations leads one to reject the three traditional views. In place of these, an alternative model provides for a conditional unity of the person, which has 5 implications. So Millard Erickson actually rejects the 3 views, and then he has another model that he says maybe can fix all the problems of the other views. We can discuss that. So the outline is the basic views of human constitution. Again, 3 parts: trichotomism, dichotomism, monism, and then a biblical consideration, and then alternative model, and then implications of the conditional unity. The basic views of human constitution, we will start with the trichotomism. It's like 3 parts. So actually this is one of the popular views in conservative evangelical Protestant circles. A human is composed of 3 elements. The first element is the physical body. Sometimes humans have in common with animals and plants. So this body, we're not the only ones that have a body, but plants have a body. It's different. Animals have bodies. It's different. But that's what we share with other creatures or other like animals and plants. So this is what's common with us. There is no difference in kind between a human body and that of animals and plants. But there is a difference of degree. We have a higher body, a higher quality, you know. As humans have a more complex physical structure. The second part of the human is the soul. The soul. And this is the psychological element. The basis of reason, emotions, social interrelatedness, and the like. So this is the soul, the seat of your emotions and intellect. Okay? According to this theory, or this view. Animals are thought to have a rudimentary soul. They have souls, but it's lower in degree. Because again, if you have a dog or a cat, they love you, they wag their tails, you know, and so they have desires, they think a little bit, you know, so they have souls, but it's a lot lower in degree than human beings. Possession of a soul is what distinguishes humans and animals from plants. So animals have souls, but plants don't. So humans, animals have souls, but not plants. While the human soul is much more involved and capable than that of the animals, their souls are similar in kind. So we are actually different in degree. What really distinguishes the human from the animals is not a more complex and advanced soul, but a third element, namely the spirit. So let's go back and just review this. So the first element is the body, and we share that with animals and plants. And then okay, let me wait for the translation. Okay. So the body is actually, the animals and plants have bodies, okay? So we all share that. And then we have souls. And animals have souls, but plants don't have souls. So we and animals share souls, though different in degree, of course. But then human beings have spirits, and the animals or the plants don't have spirits. And that's what distinguishes human beings from other creatures. This religious element enables humans to perceive spiritual matters. Yes? Okay, again I will say, we have bodies. The animals and plants have different bodies, but they have bodies. And then we have souls, and animals have souls, but plants don't have souls. Because the soul is connected again to the body, to the blood. So if you kill a soul, is actually the soul has to have blood. Okay? And then we have spirits, and animals or plants don't have spirits. Because spirits have to do with the relationship with God, with worship. How we communicate with God. And that's the only element that distinguishes us as human beings from animals and plants. Okay? The spirit. So that's how we perceive spiritual matters and respond to spiritual stimuli. It is the seat of the spiritual qualities of the individual, whereas personality traits reside in the soul. So your personality, your qualities will be in the soul, but the spiritual response will go between you. Can you go back, please? Can you go back, Marlene, please? Yeah. So the spiritual qualities would be in the spirit. But then you have the intellect or the emotions would be in the soul. Your personality traits are in the soul. Okay? Next, please. And I have to say about trichotomism is actually based on the 1st of Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians 5:23. Because it's a verse saying that God sanctify your soul, spirit, body. So Paul mentions actually the three parts in 1 Thessalonians 5:23. And this view takes that literally. It's that these divisions or these parts are literal. Okay? Now we come to the second one, is dichotomism. That the human beings are divided into two parts only, not three. So probably the most widely held view throughout the most of the history of Christian thought has been the view that human is composed of two elements. A material aspect, the body. So we are made of body, and then an immaterial component, and it's called sometimes the soul and sometimes the spirit. But they are one thing. So body and soul, or body or spirit. It's soul and spirit are not different. This view was commonly held from the earliest period of Christian thought, And following the Council of Constantinople in 381, it grew in popularity to the point where it was virtually the universal belief of the church. So according to this view, the soul and the spirit are not different. They are one thing. They are two names for the same part. And you will find many verses in the Bible talking about the spirit and saying the same stuff about the soul. So they are used interchangeably, referring to the same thing. Okay? So this is the view that soul and spirit refer to the same thing. They are not different. Monism, the third view, is that human beings are made of one thing. No three, no two. Okay? The points of agreement between trichotomism and dichotomism, they exceed their differences. They are very close. They both agree that human is complex or compound made up of separate parts. In contrast, monism insists that humans are not to be thought of as in any sense composed of parts or separate entities, but rather as a radical unity. So in dichotomism or trichotomism, they think of human beings as complex, made of two parts or three parts. This monism view is saying, no, we need to think of human beings as one unity. No division, no parts. In the monistic understanding, the Bible does not view humans as body, soul, and spirit, but simply as self. That human beings have self. And self, that's it. No body, spirit, soul. No division. So God looks at us as self. You are a self. The terms sometimes used to distinguish parts of human are actually to be taken as basically synonymous. A human is never treated in the Bible as a dualistic being, like two parts or three parts or whatever. No, that's what they say. So the human, according to this view, is to be or to have a body or have a body. The idea that a human can somehow exist apart from a body is unthinkable. So to them, they think there is no possibility of post-death, disembodied existence. And that's not really Christian. Because to them, if you are a human being, you have to have a body. There is no after death, when the body, the soul or the spirit leaves the body, and then you exist as a soul or as a spirit. No, to them, you don't exist anymore. There is no body, you don't exist. And not only then is there no possibility of a future life apart from bodily resurrection, but any sort of intermediate state between death and resurrection is ruled out as well. So actually, they deny our state after death.
But that's the same part of the issue of the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes. So Jehovah's Witnesses would be ones talking about these things. They say after we die, we kind of go into a sleep. So no existence. That's it. The unbelievers. But then believers would have resurrection and then have enjoy life with God. But sinners would just go to sleep. That's it. So they actually kind of punished by not enjoying the relationship with God for eternity.
No judgment.
So no judgment. Or that's the judgment. That's their judgment.
Prejudge.
Yeah, they are just go to sleep. Okay, biblical considerations. It appears from biblical considerations that the biblical teaching on the nature of the human does not rule out the possibility of some type of compound character. So we disagree with the monistic view, the monism, saying humans are not compound or complex. No, no, no. In the Bible, they talk about body, soul, spirit, you know, or body, soul, body, spirit. So, or at least some sort of divisibility within the human makeup. This is not to say that the use of the terms soma or psuche and noma is proof of complexity within human nature. And these are Greek words used in the Bible of the body, the soul, and the spirit. So we have soma is the body, psuche is like coming from the word we use in English, psychology. That's the root of it. And then pneuma is the spirit. But that the possibility is not precluded on lexical grounds. So it may be taught in some other fashion in the Bible. And indeed, we have already noted the scriptural passages that argue for a disembodied existence after death. So after we die, we actually exist without the body. The soul is there, or the spirit is there, in the presence of God. So even Paul says, when I die or when we die, we are absent from here, from the body, but we are present in God's presence. We go to the Lord in some form. So in paradise, believers, when they go in paradise waiting for the final day, then they are in the presence of God, in some kind of presence of God, not heaven, you know. It's a waiting process, it's a waiting stage. So there remain, however, a number of philosophical objections. Let's go. So Millard Erickson said, let me provide an alternative model, what he calls conditional unity. He says we must think of a human as a unitary compound of a material and an immaterial element. So he is saying human beings are one unit, but it's actually made of, this unit is a compound made of a material and immaterial elements. So the material would be the body, and the immaterial would be the soul or the spirit that you cannot see, you cannot touch. The spiritual and the physical elements are not always distinguishable, for the human is a unitary subject. So actually, we can say, if you are sick, is it really your body that's sick, or are you psychologically sad or depressed, and that's why your body is sick? You know? So it's a unit, actually. Sometimes it's difficult to distinguish between what's happening in the body and the spirit or the soul. The unity is dissolvable, however. This unity, one day when we die, will be dissolved. The body will die and be decomposing in earth, but then the soul or the spirit will go to the Lord. A waiting place, the paradise. This solution takes place at death. At the resurrection, a compound will again be formed. When the resurrection happens, then my soul or spirit will be combined again with my body in a glorified state.
Please, not the same one.
Huh?
Please, not the same one.
So yes, will be again be formed with the soul, if we choose to call it that, once more becoming inseparably attached to the body. So after the resurrection, when the body and the soul come together, and I said the body in a glorified state, then they are eternally inseparable. There is no more death after the resurrection. So now they are united, the body and the soul are united. At death, they dissolve, this unity is dissolved, And then at the resurrection, they are united again. The body will be glorified, and no more dissolution, no more separation between the body and the soul. So it's a unity, but actually two elements there. If you choose to say the three elements, that's not a heresy. Okay? Okay. The implications of conditional unity. Humans are to be treated as unities. Even in medicine nowadays. In the older days, they looked at human beings as bodies. You know, if you go to the doctor, it's like, what's wrong with you? You have allergies? Okay, let's talk about allergies. But now they want to say, okay, human beings are not only bodies, they are unities. So maybe you're sick because you are depressed. So we talk about depression, and if you are healed of depression, maybe your body will get better, your health will be better. You see? So now we're talking about unity. Many people have guilt, this sense of guilt, and because of that they are sick, and they go to psychiatrists and psychologists, and they want to get this sense of guilt away, you know, and they cannot function in life properly because of that. And so we need to think of human beings as one unit. Human being is one unit, and I think this also will affect our ministry in churches and with like the refugees ministry. We're not just giving them food to eat or clothes or shelter. We need to deal with the human being as one unity: soul, spirit, body, feelings, intellect. Number two is human is a complex being whose nature is not reducible to a single principle. We are very complex, and we shouldn't treat human beings in a simple way. It's like, I have the recipe. This is what you do, and then you get healed. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, we are completely different. Our psychology is very complex. So we need to just be aware of the complexity of human beings. Number 3, the different aspects of the human nature are all to be attended to and respected. And that's what I say, even in medicine now, they respect the soul and the spirit and the spiritual element and the physical element. So we have to deal with these different elements and respect them, because they are interconnected, they are complex. So your actually health affects your soul, your psychological feelings, you know, how you feel, and then sometimes your feelings affect your body and your health. It's a circle. And your spiritual life affects both of them. Number 4, religious development or maturity does not consist in subjugating one part of human nature to another. No part of the human makeup is evil per se. This is relating actually to the misunderstanding of many Christians when Paul says that I subjugate my body, my flesh. So they think he subjects this body to his soul or his spirit, and so many people, innocent Christians, they think, oh, if my body is hungry, I can beat it. You know, I don't have to listen to it. And if I have desires, then I have to oppress all my desires. My body is evil. And you see many monks beating themselves, you know, with whips, whipping themselves, and even they bleed. Why? Because they think that this body is evil. That's not Christian. That's not biblical. Because God created our bodies. And our bodies are not evil per se. What's evil is like how we use our bodies or souls or spirits. So there is no part of human nature that is evil. No, God created us good originally, but it's how we use what we have. That's the problem. So actually what Paul was talking about, the flesh, is actually the sinful human nature, not this body, my hands and my feet, and no, not this physical body. He was talking about human nature, corrupt human nature. That's what he means by the flesh, that the flesh should submit to the spirit. Okay. Yes.
We have questions.
Okay, we can, if you only one question now, and then maybe by the end we'll have more questions. Okay, go ahead.
It is related to the issue of dichotomy.
Yes.
She told us about we can mark of the first one, the body, the second one, the mind, which is the seat of emotions or psychology.
Okay.
And the word of the psychology actually enters into that.
Yes.
And
But we call it we call it in we call it in Christianity soul, not mind. So the soul is actually the seat. The soul is actually the seat of the intellect and the emotions. Yes. It's just different sayings or naming.
But she thought that because the emotions are so related to the body,
Yes.
that when the person died, pretty much the only part that will go back to God was the spirit. And the soul and or the emotions will die with the body.
Oh, okay. Well, that's according to the Christian theology. When you die, or not you, when a human being dies, the soul or the spirit goes to stay with the Lord. So actually, that part is like kind of a personal part of you. So the dead, they are actually conscious of the presence of God, the souls or the spirit, and they can experience some feelings of joy in the presence of God. So the feelings don't die. Actually, they go with you. Because you are enjoying, you're happy in the presence of the Lord. Well, maybe some of like sadness or the bad feelings will die because you will never experience this part of feelings anymore, like to be sad or angry or mad. No more.
No pain,
No pain.
You won't think about who you've left behind. Do you?
And you don't feel sad for anything. So that's that part of feeling will accompany the soul or the spirit. Yes, it's the joy of the Lord. So you actually, this part, what makes us human beings is the person. The essence of your personality will live on, though we will not have bodies. So it doesn't matter the body doesn't make us. It's the essence of your personality lives on. And then it will be united with the body, but not this body, glorified body at the resurrection. Okay? Thank you. We will, no, go back please. We will talk now about the universality of humanity. The universality of humanity. The chapter summary is, after examining the origin, purpose, and destiny of all humanity, the characteristics of race, gender, economic status, age, the unborn fetal state, and marital status become incidental to one's basic humanity. So now we're going to talk about different groups of humanity. And we're going to discuss them because they are important to culture nowadays. And we will see what the Bible says or God says about these people or these groups. So we'll talk about different races or gender or economic status or age, the fetus, the marital status. So God has regard for all persons, no matter what. Since God takes that view, it is incumbent upon the believer to adopt a similar view and to practice a godly reverence for all humanity. So if God respects and values all human beings, universal, then as believers we should follow His example. We should have respect and value every human being, no matter what he or she is. This is especially true for those who may be subject to discrimination. And that's why the groups that we are going to talk about now, usually people discriminate against. And that's why we need to take care of this and just be very clear. Next please. The outline is we're going to talk about race, all races. And then both sexes, male and female. And then people of all economic statuses. And then the age, the elderly. And then the unborn, the fetus. And then the unmarried. Okay, next please. So first we talk about all races. There is no biblical support for the position that blacks or any other race are less than fully human or inferior humans. And it's unbelievable because during the black and the white discrimination thing in the United States of America, even Christian white people, they had verses from the Bible supporting their discrimination against the blacks and saying they are not human, they are subhuman, they are less than human beings. And that's why we shouldn't respect them and value them as human beings. And we should be careful about that. So their idea is that there is, for example, no evidence to suggest that Ham was black. They say Ham, one of the sons of Noah, that Ham was black and that Noah cursed him because he saw the nakedness of Noah. And they say, well, Ham was black, and all the black race came down from Ham, so they are cursed. So that's why they say we shouldn't respect them as human beings or treat them equally. We have a biblical view now based on the Bible, and I don't know how they got that Ham was black, but that's what they say. And then they said, okay, we have reason now to mistreat them.
And this was non-believers accepting this.
And the non-believers, they say, we are white, we are superior. But then that's the difficulty, is when Christian white people try to use the Bible to vindicate what they are doing. And that's wrong. So the same is true of the claim that the mark of Cain was blackness. Can you believe it? That when, again, Cain was punished by God for killing his brother, and the Lord put a mark on him,
So it couldn't be killed.
they said that this mark was blackness. So Cain was black, became black. So his generation, the descendants, became cursed like him. Maybe you can laugh now, but that was serious and it's very dangerous stuff. And then we say, oh, Christians believe in that. Oh, well, where did you get that in the Bible? And that's bad interpretation, because you are actually adding, making the Bible say things that the Bible is not saying actually. So, further, the contention that blacks are not humans contradicts the anthropological evidence, such as the interfertility of all races with one another. So there was interfertility between one race and the other, and so there is no evidence that they are coming from Ham or coming from Cain, or so all races go back to Adam and Eve. We are one family. We are members of the same family. In all races also we talk about how does God look at different ethnic groups. You see in the Bible throughout the Old Testament that like Ruth was Moabite and was accepted in God's family. And actually she is the grandmother of King David, great-grandmother of King David. And then Jesus came from her descendants. And she was not a Jewish lady. And you will find that many people in the Old Testament, Naaman the Aramite or the Syrian, he got healed. And he was not from the Jewish nation. He was actually Syrian. So, and you find in the Bible, in Jesus' time, the Canaanite Phoenician woman that came to Jesus and said, my daughter needs to be healed. She has a demon. She's demon-possessed and she's lunatic. She's crazy because of that. And of course, Jesus wanted to deal with this issue with his disciples, and he said, you're not Jewish, go away, I'm here for the Jewish